Hello, friend. The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from beneath 4 million cubic feet of solid granite, in the burning heart of the Yellowstone caldera. This is a variety program for normal sandwich-eating Americans with some concerns about living in a deranged, post-Christian technocracy. So, keep your third eye on the sky and your ear to the ground, as Sumo and Smokestack connect your main brain vein to a higher plane. Are you ready? Stand by.
Okay, so what you say, you're going to be the salesman, and you say hello, and I'm the farmer. And
hello.
You say hello. You say hello there. Which road do you take to Nashville?
Hi there, farmer. Which road do you take to Nashville?
I think they've got a road in Nashville already. That's an old vaudeville. I haven't picked up the banjo in ages. And then I think it's something like that. And then you say, can you take this road to Nashville?
Can you take this road to Nashville?
I'd like to see you try. It's awful heavy. And then you play the
if you'd given me a script, we could have done this live, man.
I know, but that would have required me practicing this a few minutes before.
Okay.
It's something like that. And then you say, so have you lived here all your life?
Have you lived here all your life?
Not yet.
Dude, get the script and let's like do that live. Come on, it'll still be funny even though the audience already heard the jokes.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. I'll give you one more. It goes on for ages.
Okay, yeah. So we only blew 3 jokes.
Yeah, I'll give you one. And then so you say, looks like your roof needs mending. Why don't you fix it?
Hey, it looks like your roof needs mending. Why don't you fix it?
Okay, can't fix it when it's raining. When it's raining, it don't leak. The banjo throws me off. So I haven't picked up the banjo in a few years.
Okay.
So my banjo's a little rusty.
Yeah. So it sounded pretty good. There.
Anyway, so that was, that's where Looney Tunes comes from.
Is a vaudeville act?
Is this vaudeville acts turned into cartoons?
Nice.
That's why I like the whole duck season, rabbit season, duck season, right? And then you turn the sign around.
Yeah.
That goes all the way back to old, these silly jokes. They're just rehashed in Looney Tunes. And they do this. This was back when entertainment was simpler.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like, and you would say, "You're not very smart, are you?" And I'd say, "Well, I'm not lost." And I go, and then you would go, "There's not much between you and a fool, is there?" And I say, "Just this banjo." And then at the end, you would ask me, "Why do you keep playing the first half of that song?" And I go, "There's a second half," and then you take the banjo from me and you play the second half of Arkansas Traveler.
That'd be difficult to do on Skype.
Yeah, which I think is like da da da. It's a. I'm a little out of tune here. I forget how Arkansas Traveler goes, but that's the basic idea. That's how you do old Bob Black.
Well, even if you're out of tune, it doesn't matter because over the video call we can't tell.
That's right. That's
so
right.
You sound great no matter what.
That's right. And plus, banjos are very forgiving for hitting the wrong notes. So, because right, so I was doing this because today I was thinking about the Battleship Maine. You know the Battleship Maine. Are you aware?
Is there some kind of conspiracy concerning its sinking?
Is there some kind of
the sinking of the Maine? Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me see if I remember this. Here we go. Okay, everyone, bear with me. I picked up the banjo last night out of a dusty case. So, my fingers are used to ukulele now, and the spacing on the strings is different. So I'm just qualifying all that to say it's not gonna be good. But I think it goes. McKinley called for volunteers. Went and got my gun, and then first Spaniard that I saw, I dropped my gun and run. It was all the Battleship Maine. And why are you running? Are you afraid to die? The reason that I'm running is because I cannot fly. It was all the Battleship Maine. And then the next line is, the blood was a-running. I was running too. Gave my feet good exercise, had nothing else to do. It was all the Battleship Maine. In that, the chorus I forget. It's a war with a nation of Spain. When I get back to Spain, I want to under my name. It was all the Battleship Maine. And then, so it's just about a guy he's having to go in the war with Spain because they sank the Battleship Maine. And he doesn't want to go to war with Spain, and he's always running away from battle. That's the song.
I feel like the Spanish was this Spanish Civil War?
No, this was the little known or talked about or cared about American Spanish War.
Oh, right.
Which lasted only about a month. Why are you running? Are you afraid to die? The reason that I'm running is because I cannot fly. The Battleship Maine. Yeah. So that was, the Battleship Maine. The Battleship Maine. And he didn't want to go. He didn't want to go to war with that great nation of Spain.
Yeah, they were tough dudes.
As he says. The interesting thing about that song. is that song was actually written later.
Yeah.
Than the original. So there was another song that used the same tune. Also, it involved President McKinley about his assassination. And they repurposed that for the lyrics of the Battleship Maine song, which I think it's called White House Blues because he's dying.
Oh.
It was McKinley hollered, McKinley squalled, and then Doc said, McKinley, I can't find that ball, you're bound to die in Buffalo. Doc came running up, pulling off his specs. Doc said, McKinley, better cash your checks, you're bound to die in Buffalo. And then the wife comes in. I think she says, look, you rascal, see what you've done? You shot my husband with your Ivor Johnson gun, which is a great line. Because that tells you the brand of the gun of the assassin, which is Ivor Johnson gun. I'm taking back to Washington. And then it goes like that. So, and then it talks about him being carried away in 4 boxcars. Or 44 boxcars trimmed in lace. We put him on the last one so we can't see his face. From Buffalo to Washington.
That's sad.
Yeah, McKinley. He was actually a good president that just came at a bad time.
Yeah.
People got mad at him for screwing up the Spanish War. But the whole thing wasn't his fault. He was just there chilling. And then what happened was, is that, so, I mean, I know we all have trouble imagining that the media could be whipping people up into a frenzy for no reason.
Nah, they never do that.
That's never happened.
No.
So, but anyway, by all accounts, this is some weird history because no one remembers it anymore. But for a while there, the U.S. was very interested in Cuba.
Yeah.
And Spain had Cuba, and we had a ship in Cuba called the Battleship Maine in the harbor, and it sank. And people immediately started, all the journals at the time, the media said, oh, it was sabotaged by the Spanish. Like there was some Spanish saboteur on board, or they snuck it, or they hit it with a mine.
Mm-hmm.
All evidence and every government agency that looked into it said it was a fire that started in the coal room that ignited the munitions on board and blew up the ship. And but that didn't stop the media from running with no, it was the dirty Spaniards.
Mm-hmm.
And because America is built upon being offended on the behalf of other people and then going to vicious war over it.
Yeah. They
said the only way to atone for this is to grant full independence to the Cubans.
That's convenient.
Like the argument in the paper wasn't about us and our battleship.
Right.
It was about, because of this battleship, you owe it to the oppressed Cubans. And so then they started a war. I mean, it wasn't a direct thing, but it did make sort of, as you heard in the song, it was all about the Battleship Maine.
It's kind of like, because the Saudis blew up the World Trade Center, we're going to topple the government of Iraq.
Right, because democracy.
Because of democracy and stuff.
They need democracy too.
Yep.
And the Cubans needed democracy. And then what we did, and I mean, blaming it on a Spanish conspiracy to blow up the Maine and kill, I think, because like 200 something sailors died, almost 300. That was a big thing. Sold a lot of papers. They would put, a paper back then was big paper, but they'd have almost 10 pages of every paper about Spanish conspiracies for blowing up the Maine.
Wall-to-wall coverage, yeah.
And it got the whole American public to start saying things in public like, remember the Maine, to hell with Spain, which was the no justice, no peace of the time.
It was a simpler time.
Yeah, remember really the Maine, to hell with Spain.
Yeah.
So they got upset and they said, you must free the Cubans, you dirty colonizing Spaniards, which is really sort of the line, which didn't make any sense. But they were like, we have recently liberated the slaves, and now I have moral high ground, despite having just done the same thing you were doing 10 years hence. But now we are better. And then all the newspapers were filled with images of the war of Black American soldiers fighting alongside white American soldiers. Like, look, we're together now. We kill other people together. Like, we're like, it makes it better because now we can come together to kill others.
Me and all my homies hate the Spanish.
Yeah, it really was. Me and all my homies, they were like, all of the Southern Negroes hate the Spanish as well.
Yeah.
And that means we were right in liberating them because they will help us kill the dirty Spaniards.
Right.
And then just as a coincidence, we happen to also get, Guam and Puerto Rico and the Philippines out of this being very offended on behalf of the Cubans deal. Yeah, but we were really concerned about the Cubans. You got to understand. The fact that we got 3 major island territories out of it, nothing to do with it. And the fact that even though we gave them independence, we finagled our way into the Cuban government for decades afterwards and did large control of the shipping in the Atlantic. That was not in any way part of the reasoning for going to war. It was all just to free the Cubans.
It was very benevolent.
Just like everything we do today is just to protect the Israelis. It's all, there's no oil interest at all.
No, none whatsoever.
There's the fact that if you controlled Cuba, you basically controlled all of the shipping through and around the South America and Latin America to Europe, had nothing to do with it. And you could then charge taxes on it. Had nothing. It was nothing. That was not why we were concerned.
I mean, I sense a little cynicism.
A little cynicism. I mean, I'm just saying the fake war is a long-standing tradition. The fake war for ID poll purposes goes back a long way in American history. We do that. That's sort of what we do. We get offended on the behalf of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ideological framework of America does not allow one to get offended for oneself reasons.
That's a shame. Because
Yeah,
you can't really have an honor culture that way.
It's sort of a Puritan thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of a holdover from the Puritans. Like, well, you know, you got to be so humble. To be upset about your own self
Mm-hmm.
or like a slight against you would be bad. But you should also then vigorously defend other people who, like, other downtrodden. Right. So what that turns into is we go kill people because we think they should be upset even if they aren't.
Flimsy and embarrassing excuses to go to war.
Yeah.
Rather than just, that's
why I say it would be more.
We're going to kill them because we hate their guts.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we're going to talk about a little bit about fake wars today. But first I wanted to ask you if you'd ever heard of Transient Moonlights. No. And also what you think about the Donald getting the Rona.
What do I think about the Donald getting the Rona?
Well, you totally skipped over Transient Moonlight.
Well, okay. Let's talk about that first. Okay. I don't know what Transient Moonlights are, and I've never heard of this at all. Okay, well. Excuse me. I got the Rona from Donald.
Well, I brought it because I thought I don't think I did, but I thought I did, but I don't think I did. Saw Transient Moonlight the other day.
I thought you said you. Never mind.
I thought I saw one, but in retrospect, I think I was just imagining it.
Meaning what?
I don't think it was. Meaning what?
Like, what's the Transient Moonlight though? You gotta.
Oh, it's a light that appears on the moon.
Oh, okay. Like somebody's flashing something at you.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing. This is not like a crazy person thing. This is a well scientifically documented thing that astronomers at major universities talk about, like by papers out of like Cambridge and papers out of Cornell, and they're all like, oh yeah, the transient moonlight phenomena, which is this phenomena, and there's even pictures of it from telescopes from legit astronomers, which is these little bright patches of white light just appear on the moon. Just
weird.
And no one's quite sure what they are, but sometimes they're also colored, like green. In the 1800s, one guy said he saw red, and then that what led to the speculation there was volcanic eruptions on the moon.
That'd be cool.
And also, little known, but quote unquote, and I know we all agree that it's very speculative, but just for the moment, let's go with the idea that they did land on the moon.
Okay.
But on Apollo 11, going to the moon when they're just about to land on the moon, like they're still traveling in, they can see it. Houston called up and said, hey, we have an astronomer saying he's seeing green lights on the moon.
Ooh. And
Buzz looked out the window of the capsule and confirmed that, yes, they also saw green light on the moon. And that's not me making that up. You can read that on the NASA website about the moon, the transient green light. And no one ever talks about it. And it's like, that's a bit weird.
That is weird.
Like, you'd think if you went up to someone on the street and were like, hey, what do you think about the fact that Neil and Buzz saw like a weird green glowing light on the moon?
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like, you're a crazy person. But no, that's in the actual NASA report of what happened that day.
Wow.
So, I don't know. I thought maybe I should just bring that up so people could be aware of transient moonlight.
I'm going to look for them now.
Here's the thing. The major theory going at the moment is that they are the results of some sort of gaseous plume coming up and spraying the lunar regolith into the moon air, which reflects more light.
Moon fart?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that has a big problem because that means that the moon is not as geologically dead as we believe. That means there's still lava flowing under there, building up pressure. That means that there's something more happening on the moon, which there's no other indications that would happen, but no one else can come up with a good reason for why there would be these random spurts of bright light on the moon Now, why they would be colored, I don't know.
The situation is ripe for hollow moon theory.
Well, that's true. That's true. Or alien bases on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
If you know, there's this big push to get out on the moon now. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
But all the governments are trying to get on the moon, and you know why? I think it's because you can mine the moon for good stuff.
That's why.
I think that if the astronauts got up there, this is my I go with that for a minute. Mm-hmm. I'm not operating the frame that they did. I think they got up there, they discovered, the moon rocks they brought back the crap ones. Mm-hmm. And other than that, they were like, hey, there's a lot of good stuff up here. Let's not tell anybody else.
It's like littered with diamonds and gold up there.
Yeah, when we run out of lithium down on Earth, this place is chock full of it, or something like that.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, it is full of tritium, according to their thing, which is what you need for nuclear fusion.
Right.
If we ever got that going. But, there was a great movie about that called Moon. Where this guy was.
That was a weird movie, man.
He was up there working as a lunar miner for tritium to send back to Earth. And then he found out he was a clone. Mm-hmm. Much like your story.
Yeah.
That's why I related to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think about Donald Trump getting the Rona?
Yeah.
Be on the lookout for transient moonlight phenomena.
I will. Trump getting the Rona. So, okay. The normie view of this is like, it was bound to happen. You know, he's going to campaigns all the time. He's interacting with so many people. You know, DC is such a hustle bustle town. All these meetings, babies, kissing babies all the time. Babies are loaded with germs. So, we were bound to have a White House outbreak.
Right.
I don't think that's true. I think that those people have the best medical surveillance of anybody on the planet right now.
Right.
So what I think happened is a mini version of what happened in New York, or what I think happened in New York. That was some sort of release of a pathogenic agent was done at some event where all these people were, and they all caught this thing. And so,
this is going with you need a secondary catalyst hypothesis.
Maybe, but it also works with the idea that the virus isn't very stable, and after so many generations, it mutates into something much more benign. And so the thing was released in New York. It was really bad there, and then as it spread across the country, it was more benign. But if you were to take the original specimen from the lab and release it again, you would have New York style effects of severity.
Okay. Well, that could be, because I think even the mainstream view right now is that the virus is mutated into something less potent than its
right. And so
which would make sense because viruses are not stable things.
So if the White House outbreak ends up being a lot of people getting really sick and maybe somebody dies, I will be inclined to think that there was a release of the original bug pre-mutation. Right. If not, then they all just got the more benign mutated form, and bound to happen at some point. And it that it happened in November makes me not want to just say, oh well, October. Oh well, things happen. Nothing just happens in October on an election year.
Well, I sort of felt like it had to happen, because it makes the storyline better.
There was a necessity for drama, the cosmic drama.
For cosmic drama purposes, he needed to get the virus that he'd been talking about this whole time.
Right.
Right before the crucial moment.
Yeah. Because
that makes the best plot story.
Well,
number 15 would be like, it's all because of the simulation writers. And I always say to him, why can't you just say it's because God has a plan? Why do you got to make it a computer game?
Number 15, you need to pull yourself together. This simulation stuff is dumb.
And then he says, because it makes you mad. And then I say, okay. So he gets,
okay, that's a valid reason, 15.
Yeah. He's like, I do it because it makes you. But it had to happen.
Yeah.
It
is really just like perfect literature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's a lot of this is it's been pretty great watching the left go conspiratorial on this one.
Yeah. Well, they think he's faking it, right?
Right. So the left thinks he's faking it, so he can come out and be like, see, Rona is no big deal. Pew, pew, pew. And I'm a hero. I beat the virus. Pew, pew, pew. Vote for me.
But that's exactly how he would act if he really got it and got over it.
I know, exactly.
That's a self-licking popsicle of a theory right there.
And then people on the right are like, it was sabotage. Pew, pew, pew. Yeah, everyone has laser guns when they get conspiracy theory, which has been great. I think he probably just caught it from that Hope Hill girl.
Hicks,
That's about the extent of the thing.
Yeah.
I think it just was, but it had to happen because of the cosmic drama.
Mm-hmm.
It just has to. You know, it's like if you read about all the great men in history, they all had these tremendously unlikely things happen.
Mm-hmm.
They just make the story so much better.
Yeah.
You know, like you never read about Napoleon. It's like, and then he came to power and everything went fine until he died. You know, that sort of stuff. It just doesn't. It doesn't go.
No,
so, I don't know. Maybe by the time you'll be listening to this, maybe Trump has died of Rona. Who knows?
I hope not. This situation's causing a lot of drama in my house because my wife adores Trump.
Oh, really?
I mean, I like him too. My wife really likes him.
Right.
So
she likes his stunning good looks.
Yeah, his charisma.
What if he stays in the hospital for like 2 weeks and then he emerges with like a full beard?
Yeah.
He's like Trump the White.
Yeah.
It's his death and resurrection moment.
Yes. Yes.
And he comes out and he says, I have seen the light.
Yeah.
And he says, and then he's like, has some new spin that's now popular with everybody. He's like, we're going to make the whole world America.
Mm-hmm.
or something.
In my house, we're praying that his near-death experience will become an opportunity for conversion to Christian faith. So we'll see what happens.
I haven't even prayed about it because I just feel like this is just what is the plan.
I feel like I have to just, suspend disbelief and pray for him anyway, even though I'm highly suspicious of what's going on.
And then Melania's got it too.
Yeah.
Which she probably got from hanging out with Christmas decorators.
Right. She's a racehorse, though. I don't think she's going to have trouble.
No, she's fine.
Yeah.
She's going to be fine. Unless, like you said, they released version 1.0.
Right. That can mess anybody up. We'll see how folks like there's just 2 senators that have it now, or congressmen some kind.
Oh, I don't know.
So, and they're a bit younger, so we'll see how they do.
It would be better for America if all of Congress got COVID 1.0.
Yeah.
It would it'd be more if more of them had it.
Oh, it would make for great television this fall.
If like all of Congress was on the floor.
Yeah.
But they're still passing resolutions to condemn QAnon. the last dying breath.
Yeah.
I condemn Q. Ugh.
And the Proud Boys, they condemn the Proud Boys as a white nationalist organization. Okay, I'm not a Proud Boys fan, but they're not white nationalists. And
they're also dopey.
Yeah.
Like if you look at it, it's like they're a bunch of I don't know. It's just they're not a big threat.
Right. No, they're just benign LARPing.
Mm-hmm.
I bet a lot of them are cool guys,
Yeah.
I ain't gonna hate on them, but that was dumb. I felt like Trump could be like, yeah, I condemn Proud Boys. What's a Proud Boy? He doesn't know who these people are.
Yeah. And then it's like in Futurama when the professor's being sucked down a whirlpool.
Uh-huh.
When his head's above the water and he goes, with my last breath, I curse Zoidberg. And then he goes down. He hates Zoidberg that much. That was a good show. It's better than The Simpsons.
Yeah, it was.
Prime Futurama was better than Prime Simpsons. I know that's controversial. But
but why is that controversial? Simpsons it's made the same jokes over and over.
No, but I mean Prime Simpsons was really good.
They had their moments.
They've gone way too long now. But I mean, what are you gonna do?
My sister just spit out her coffee, I'm sure, because she's the biggest Simpsons fan I know.
I mean, I like the Simpsons too, but they just, at this point, it's the zombie Simpsons. They're just going on.
Yeah.
Undead.
So we can't cancel the Simpsons.
I mean, I'm sort of with it because they become sort of like you could look back on the Simpsons and just, that's a document of this whole time they've been going.
Yeah, really, my entire life, the Simpsons has existed.
Yeah, they've existed my entire life also.
Or at least the part I remember, yeah.
And what if it started on the day you were born and it ends on the day you die? Like it's connected to your personal life. That'd be weird.
We ought to do a show on the early 80s sometime and all the weird things that happened in the early 80s.
We should.
Because I feel like a portal was opened. When did CERN fire up their first thing? When was that? That was in the 90s, wasn't it?
I thought it was in the late 90s or early 2000s.
Okay, well, that didn't work. Although, they're screwing with time anyway, so it could have messed something up in the 80s. Something
there was a lot of weird stuff in the 80s. And there was also something weird in the 1940s.
What happened?
I'm getting back to my fake war theme. So have you ever wondered why? This is why I know, look, some of the stuff I say on this program sounds a little crazy.
I've never thought so.
And let's be fair, some unknown percentage of it is absolute nonsense. I don't know what percent that is.
Yeah.
But some percentage of it is not true.
That's an important fact for our audience to understand.
Right.
I think they know.
And that's not to say that I'm lying to you. It's just that my theories are not right. Right. I don't know what percent they are not right.
That's something I really appreciate about you, Sumo. That you can say that and it's okay.
But some percentage of them are not. I think some percentage of it is right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know where that line is. Okay. But the reason that I'm able to entertain these big conspiracy theories is because some of the big conspiracy theories that have happened are not questioned. Everyone agrees. Like the battleship Maine was not blown up by the Spanish. The media and, frankly, then Secretary of the Navy, Theodore Roosevelt, warmongered about that a bit for his own political gain. Yeah, let's be fair, because then he got to be in the Rough Riders and go to Cuba and look all fancy and be a war hero, which would have helped him be president. Yeah. So they stoked a conspiracy theory. Like Roosevelt actually got mad at someone publicly for saying that their commission thought it was just a coal fire that went wrong. Roosevelt got mad and said, "You can't." I have the quote somewhere. He said, "Quote, though it may not even be likely, it is certainly at least possible that it was a mine." Like that it was a sabotage. So he's saying, like, he's getting very like, you can't know for sure the Spanish didn't do it. Right. So we better blow them up. And he even says in his quote, though it may not be likely. Right. And so then, and then he called it, he loved the war. He said it was a splendid little war. And it was not a very big deal. Yeah. As far as wars go. Like I said, it lasted less than a month. Everybody was able to go get their kicks in Cuba. Yeah, and then I think only if you took both of the dead together from each side, only like 1,000 people died. Yeah, which isn't that bad for a war. Yeah, I think we captured 40,000 Spaniards though. Awesome, because their ships broke. Like they were about to have a battle with us, and their ships just broke. And they're like, okay, whatever. Our ship doesn't run anymore. And they're like, okay, well. So, and then Spain basically just decided it wasn't worth the effort to continue because they were having to pull out. That was the end of the Spanish Empire. Yeah. Really, was the Spanish-American War. And the Spaniards got very angry at the Puerto Ricans, and I sort of understand it because they said, we've never seen such cowardly people as the Puerto Ricans. they were extremely pro-Spanish until the moment we lost, and they're like, "Woo, America!" And the Spaniards wrote about the behavior of the Puerto Ricans for decades to come, because they were like, those Puerto Ricans just were like, just whoever's there, they were like, "Woo, we love you guys."
They're still like that today.
Yeah, I know. But the Puerto Ricans were like all about like Spain, but when the war started, they were like, "Spain forever. We love Spain." And then like a month later, they were like, "Oh, say, can you see?" I mean, it's the complete turnaround, because they were just like, whoever's here, we're just going along to get along.
Yeah.
And but anyway, that's the reason I can entertain these big conspiracies, because it's happened before. Battleship Maine, and in World War II. Now, why? Question to the audience: why did we get into war with Europe, with Germany? Japan blew up the thing, right?
Right.
That seems like a good reason. They attacked Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
That seems like a decent reason to go to war. But why did we go to war with Germany? And you can't say the Jews, because no one knew about the Jews' situation in Germany yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They wouldn't know about that for some years. So it wasn't like they were going to go free the Jews. Why did we go? Any ideas?
Loyalty to England and France.
No.
Okay.
Good guess, though.
Why?
Well, Roosevelt, he campaigned basically on, I'm not going to go to war with Germany.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, look, I'm going to have American neutrality in the war, because no one wanted to get into World War II. They still remembered World War I, and it was awful.
Yeah.
And didn't really give them anything. And everyone was of the opinion, well, if Europe just blows itself up, then more money for us, because we'll be the only people that make anything. And so they were like, just stay out of it. But Roosevelt, of course, succumbed to the then budding military-industrial complex,
mm-hmm.
and felt like he had to get into the war. But there was no reason to get into the war, because Europe hadn't done anything to us yet, right? And they didn't seem to have anything. So what happened was, in October of 1941, Roosevelt gave a nationally radio broadcast Navy Day address, in which he made the following claim, quote, I can't do a Roosevelt voice, so just take whatever it is and imagine it's Roosevelt.
Check.
I have in my possession, and I should clarify, this is Franklin Roosevelt. This is not Theodore Roosevelt from a few minutes ago.
Right.
Confusing. Just for anyone that's really bad at history, not the same Roosevelt.
Okay.
I have in my possession a secret map made in Germany by Hitler's government. It is a map of South America and a part of Central America, and as Hitler proposes to reorganize it. This map makes clear the Nazi design not only against South America, but against the United States itself. So, in 1941, in October, Roosevelt came on and he presented the American people with a crazy map of South America,
mm-hmm.
with all these lines drawn on it and German scribbles. And it's basically, he claimed it was a map of the German designs to take over South America also. So they were going to take over Europe and then move to South America. And he said, and then you would still say, well, I mean, maybe, but that's still not us. I mean, are we going to go to war over that?
And sorry to interrupt, but would they even have enough gas in the tank after taking over Europe to then go to South America? No, man. That's dumb.
So, but here's the thing. And so he sold it. The clincher was, and they're going to take the Panama Canal, which was still operated by America at the time. So he said, we have to go to war with Germany. But here's the problem. That map was, and this is not a conspiracy theory at this point. Everyone agrees. This is common knowledge. Look it up. that map was forged by British intelligence in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Because the British wanted to get America into the war for helping purposes.
Yeah.
And America would not. So the British made up a fake map and they gave it to the Americans and said, see, they're going to come for you guys too. So you better get into the war. But here's the thing. Roosevelt almost certainly knew it was at least of dubious origin and ran with it anyway, because he changed the draft of his address to read, I have in my possession a map of, I think it was something like indisputable origin, to just, I have in my possession a map. So he crosses out indisputable, like he's right. And the first draft is like of indisputable, and then he like thinks about it a bit, and then he crosses out indisputable origin. He says, I just have a map. Secret map. I have a secret map.
Secret map.
And so really America got into the war with Europe. And so you think about that. He probably knew, because they wanted to get into the war anyway, the American government.
Right.
But they couldn't sell it to the people because they had ran on not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to make it look like. So if he did that with full knowledge, and that's the only part of this you can't prove, is that how much knowledge Roosevelt had that it was fake.
Right.
We know that the map was fake. We know that Germany had no designs at the present moment on South America because they were too busy. They were going to go to Russia.
Right.
They weren't going to head to South America. They were going to knock out France and then go east.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that that's true. We just don't know how much he knew. But imagine if FDR did know. That makes him, one could argue, worse than Hitler.
Yeah.
If he gets all the American people, causes that much pain and suffering, eventually dropping 2 atomic bombs on people, that much pain and suffering on the basis of a lie. Like if you sell a country's on a war that is a known lie, that's really bad.
Yeah.
That's a really bad thing to do. That makes you arguably as bad as Hitler, because you've just sentenced all these people to die and all this suffering on a known fiction.
Yep.
I mean, it's not good. It's not good. And that one. So you keep that sort of stuff happens, and then you got stuff like in more recent history, WMDs, which weren't real.
Yep.
Or the babies in incubators.
I wonder if British spies were involved in that too.
Probably.
I'm seeing a theme here all the way to Steele dossier. It's like British spies equals no good. Stay away.
Yeah, you can never trust the enemy.
Can't trust those losers.
No.
James Bond was the enemy all along.
He really was.
Yeah.
But
seducing all our women.
What now?
He's seducing all our women.
Mm-hmm.
Getting us into phony wars under false pretenses.
Okay. And then what about Vietnam? Gulf of Tonkin. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
Okay. The Gulf of Tonkin. Describe.
Yeah, it was in the Gulf there, off the coast of Vietnam, and it was at night. And there was noises. There was shots or something, and the Americans assumed that we were under attack, and then there was a whole bunch of gunfire. But directed at what? Nobody knew what they were shooting at. And then there was no, enemy vessel spotted or destroyed or whatever by anybody.
Right.
But everybody presumed that we were attacked, and therefore we went to war.
Right. And so, yeah exactly. August 2nd, 1964, the U.S. destroyer named the USS Maddox was performing patrols, and supposedly, this is the original story, approached by 3 Vietnamese torpedo boats. The Maddox fired warning shots, and the North Vietnamese attacked with torpedoes and machine gun fire. That's the original story. But as confirmed by the Pentagon Papers, the memoirs of the then Secretary of Defense, Robert McNamara, and the 2005 NSA publications, it proves that all of that didn't happen.
Yeah.
It was never, that never occurred, right? So That's the original story. There's these 3 torpedo boats, and they come and attack the Maddox, which got us into the war with Vietnam, which killed 58,000 Americans, wounded 300,000 more, or over 1 million Vietnamese people, right? Not to mention other people like Laos and Khmer Rouge and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. It was an open lie. Or, if you want to be weird about it, it was some sort of weird paranormal anomalous event, because the explanations for what happened there are very strange. So, what the Maddox got into a battle with something, but it wasn't clear what it was. So, like, they got these radar images, which they eventually came to call the Tonkin ghosts, because they were in the Gulf of Tonkin. So there's all these radar images and sonar images, that like mimicked Vietnamese torpedo boats. And that some of the sailors even said they saw the torpedo boats, but they maybe they didn't, right? So and then when asked later, the Vietnamese general asked what happened, he said absolutely nothing. The attack was purely imaginary.
Oh, wow.
Which is, I mean, you could say, well, he's the enemy, so he's lying. But so it was 4 hours. For 4 hours, the Maddox believed they were fighting the North Vietnamese Navy.
Whoa.
For 4 hours. That's all right. So because they had radar, sonar, radio signals, whatever. They're doing all these maneuvers in the sea. They're shooting guns. They're boom, 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 boom. They're trying to dodge torpedoes, right? So they're apparently picking up all these signals, according to their own claims, seeing them with their own eyes in this battle. Yep. Right. They even thought they hit some, but there was never any wreckages. I mean, like, if you hit a torpedo boat, it's gonna sit there and sink. Everyone was there. None of that. So this is going on back and forth, right? And it gets back to President Johnson, and they're like, hey, we're in a pitched Navy battle with the Viet Cong. So he's like, oh, that's it, and then he orders airstrikes in retaliation. But even while it's happening, there's doubt that anything is happening at all.
Wow.
So at 1:27 a.m. Washington, D.C. time, a cable comes from the commander of the Maddox, named John Herrick. The cable says the following, quote, review of action makes many reported contacts and torpedoes fired appear doubtful. Freak weather effects on radar and overeager sonar men may have accounted for many reports. No actual visual sightings by Maddox. Suggest complete evaluation before any further action taken. So basically, he blames it on swamp gas. So there was freak weather effects that were causing us to have a naval battle against imaginary things for 4 hours.
Well, that can be, you can mess with radar with, electrical effects and create things on the radar that are not there.
You can, but can you do that also with sonar at the same time? For 4 hours and convince a Navy ship that they are in a battle?
Well, okay, you could put something on sonar, but the sonar and the radar don't necessarily have to match each other for them to think something to get them excited and think they're being attacked. Like, you could have something in the water, something just enough to make a sonar signature.
It's very strange, though, because they're like, for 4 hours, they're going boom, 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 dodge, go left, go. Yeah. They're firing things. They're going crazy. They're calling for backup. And even at the time it's happening, the commander's sending things like, is this real? What are we doing? But he's still good. It's strange. So 1 hour later, 2:30 in the morning, he sends another one that says, quote, entire action leaves many doubts, except for apparent ambush at beginning. Suggests thorough reconnaissance daylight by aircraft. So Washington writes back asking for confirmation. Like, what do you talk? We've already started airstrikes. What do you mean you think you're shooting ghosts?
Yeah.
And he responds, details of action present a confusing picture, although certain the original ambush was bona fide. So McNamara, the Secretary of Defense, receives these messages while the president is bombing the country, and apparently doesn't tell the president of it right away. He just is like, well, I've messed up here, maybe. Let's just not reveal that at the moment. And a lot of conspiracy is that. It's someone messes up big time, like get you into a war that didn't need to happen. And they're like, ooh, should I tell anybody about this?
And, and especially a lot of people wanted to go to war anyway. Exactly. And so now we gotta spin this thing into something that we can hang on to and use as a pretense for our war.
Yeah, if you want to know how easily a fake war can start, imagine that you think something happened, like you think a Russian fighter flew by too close to our people, right? Broke our airspace, and they returned fire. And it turns out later, like 30 minutes later, that it was actually just some Russian guy with a crop duster trying to get his pilot license. he didn't know where he was going. Yeah. And you guys shot it down. And then they started firing at each other, and now it looks now they've already blown up each other a bit. And now you're in a battle, and no one can walk it back and say, you know what, that was actually an accident. Yeah. Because to admit that, you look really bad, and you possibly face criminal charges. And I mean, it's and so people are just like, well, that's one of the easy ways these conspiracies can happen, is just no one wants to admit that they messed up big time. And so then they just don't say anything. Yeah. So Jonathan has already started Operation Pierce Arrow, which was the retaliatory attacks, right? So for a full day, there's this retaliation attack of airstrikes on North Vietnam. Even though no one is sure anything actually happened. So by that evening, so then later that day, at the end of the day, 6 p.m. DC time, which was 5 a.m. the next day in Vietnam, Henrik, the commander, cables again saying, the first boat to close the Maddox probably, we don't know, he said the first boat to close the Maddox probably launched a torpedo at us, which was heard but not seen. All subsequent Maddox torpedo reports are doubtful, and it is suspected that the sonar man was hearing the ship's own propeller beat. So that's a major screw up.
Yeah, man.
That's a major, now, props to Herrick for being like, look, I think we were just being dummies. But Operation Pierce Arrow is already in effect, and the Vietnamese aren't going to be like, well, no problem. You just blew up like several of our centers and killed civilians with these airstrikes.
At that point, it's on, and
and it just didn't. And either they were fighting. So where it gets the thing is like, what was causing the swamp gas? Because he blames it on weird weather effects. So like, they did want to get in the war anyway. That's true. So could it have been that someone was purposefully doing this? Because
the technology to manipulate their radar and sonar did exist at the time.
The technology did exist, but then you could say also like maybe the Viet Cong did it to try and. But here's the thing: the whole purpose of the Maddox being that close to begin with was to poke the Vietnamese and to try and get them to attack. Yeah, that's the whole point of it. There was no reason to be that close to their sea.
Yeah, in fact, just like when we embargoed Japan and we're blockading their ports. It's like, well, Yeah,
you embargo Japan, you invade their ports, and they're like, oh, why did they blow up Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, it's like, the
whole there's a lot of that. So at the beginning, it's a conspiracy because the whole point of the ship being there was to provoke the Vietnamese into action so we would have an excuse. Yeah. Because we always need to feel offended on behalf of other people to go kill them. So we had to say, like, the North Vietnamese are horribly evil and oppressing the South Vietnamese. And we have to go and protect the South Vietnamese.
Which, even if that's true, it's not our business.
Not our business.
It's not our job.
And the commander of the Maddox is like, is anything here? What's happening?
Yeah.
You know, is the sonar man just hearing the propeller and he's gotten spooked, and now he's like, he thinks we're under attack, and then he's like, torpedo, torpedo, torpedo. There's so many torpedoes. They're always here. And it's because the sound of the torpedo is their own ship's propeller right behind them. Maybe.
It's embarrassing. Yeah.
It's very embarrassing, but now it's on, right?
Yeah.
And that's so we've got two of the biggest wars for America in the 20th century were started on fabrications and fakes and mistakes.
Yeah.
One of them, at least purposefully, we know that the map was purposeful, at least as far as the English were concerned. We're not sure of FDR's knowledge of it.
Well, just like the Steele dossier, something can be pretty doubtful, but you'll force yourself to believe it because it gets you what you want. And
you sort of have an obligation if you're FDR and his administration, like someone hands you a secret map of Nazi plans for South America, and you just accept it at face value. They're like, secret map.
Yep.
Secret map. And then you go, you sort of need to check that. I would think, like, okay, we got this secret map, but can we confirm this isn't made up by someone that wants us to? So he wanted to do it too, because he did not do due diligence.
And we had spies over there early on. The dude that founded the Boy Scouts of America, Baden Powell, was a spy over in Germany. Yeah. It's like we could have got some information to verify or disprove German plans on South America.
Yeah.
Before we just
didn't. And then we remember the first Gulf War. They told us they were coming through ripping babies out of incubators and throwing them on the ground. That wasn't happening. And the second Gulf War, there was WMDs, which were never found.
Yep.
So I'm just saying that this is a long history of America, of from all the way back to the Spanish-American War, and maybe before. I don't have any proof of it. I mean, the first shot of the Civil War, for all we know, may have been some guy being like, hee hee hee, pow. Oh, did you hear that? I mean, it could have been. I don't know. We just had no proof of it.
Well, the first shot of the Civil War was really the Yankees invading South Carolina, because that's what they did. Then they got shot at for it. So you did invade South Carolina, Yankees. Sorry.
I know. So
that's what happens when you invade somebody.
Yeah. So I mean, it's all very. So this is why maybe be careful of joining the military, because you might just be joining to go fight, kill, and die for some stupid, dumb lie. Which is arguably what most of the people in the 20th century of America were drafted to go do.
It's very sad.
Which is very dark and sad. And that's. People don't want to think about it. They want to think about other stuff, like the Kardashians. And this is the thing. The thing about conspiracy. Here's the thing that really holds conspiracy down, because it gets so dark so quickly.
Yeah.
To think about, that people are they don't want to. You start saying like, now listen, there's a pedo island.
Yeah.
Where people take. And they have a ritualistic temple, and people go, we don't want to listen to this.
Yeah.
We want to hear. We want Happy Snappy. Give us Ellen dancing on the TV with George Bush. We don't want to think about George Bush's war crimes. Just show us his paintings.
Right.
Show us his paintings. Oh, look at that. He's a nice, dopey Texan painter.
Yep.
He didn't kill a bunch of people for no reason.
Yeah.
We don't want to think about Obama drone striking American citizens without any legal standing we don't want to, or running Guantanamo Bay.
Yeah.
After they said they did. So people it gets so dark, people don't want to think about it, which is how these things propagate.
Right.
Because, and no one wants to be like, oh, my granddad died in World War II and World War II was a fiction.
Yeah.
It was started on a big lie.
Yeah. Or
I went and fought in Vietnam and and lost my leg and there was no reason. Because the whole thing was made up. Yeah. The initial action was made up. That's depressing. People don't want to do that. They want to. I mean, it's almost better for people to be like, no, they really did attack us, and that justifies me losing my leg in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Because then it becomes a heroic action rather than a sad tragedy.
Yeah.
But that's a good segue into the second part I want to talk about, which was ritualistic suicide.
Oh man. I'm really glad we can transition to a cheerier topic.
Well, okay, I'll take a little pause, and I'm going to promote my mullet manifesto, which is happier.
All right.
Mullet manifesto.
Okay.
I don't know what that means yet. I just like the hashtag.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm growing a mullet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a very good one yet because I don't know how. My hair grows at all the same rate.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure how to cut the front proportionally to the back yet. And I also have the problem that my hair is curlier. So it tends to weave in upon itself and form a giant afro.
Yeah, you've got a good fro rocking this morning, buddy.
I've got a good fro. It takes a while for the weight of my hair to overcome the structural integrity of my hair. It takes a while, and then it falls down. There will come a moment. It will just be one instant, actually, when it grows out that last millimeter.
Yeah.
And the weight just cannot and then it will fall down in a luscious locks over my shoulders.
Yeah.
Like a movie star, which is, I'm trying to go for something approximating Mel Gibson's 80s mullet, which was the most beautiful mullet that was ever.
He did have a great mullet. Yeah.
His hair was fabulous.
Yeah.
But the mullet manifesto is that we're going to get back to just having fun.
Yep.
Skateboarding. I bought a scooter.
I'm going to get some rollerblades. I've been shopping rollerblades.
I can't skateboard. I should learn, but I bought a scooter, a Razor kick scooter.
Okay.
Because my kids have gotten into scootering and bicycling.
Now, you will kill yourself on that thing.
I've been going, man. I've been going fast. And you know what? I'm going to do it shirtless with pink shorts and a fanny pack.
Have you hit a rock yet that's big enough to stop the wheel instantly?
No, I got the one with the big wheels. I got the adult version.
Okay. Because the tiny wheel, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. But so what we're going to do is all the maps people, what you got to do is you got to ride some sort of non-motored vehicle.
Okay.
Be muscled and shirtless with the mullet.
Mm-hmm.
And wearing a fanny pack. Just like in the 80s. You can rollerblade doing this down the street and wearing sunglasses, and everyone that comes by you just make little pistol fingers at and point. Like,
yep.
Boom, boom, boom. That's how we win back the culture war. Just by being more beautiful, more fun, and having a better time.
Well, so this presents a dilemma for me.
Uh-huh.
I've been working out, and I can tell, like, I'm getting stronger, right? It feels good and all, but I don't know that I can really ever rise above like an Alex Jones type physique of strong fat.
Well, that's okay.
So how do I qualify for this movement if strong fat is probably my apex?
Look up bodybuilders of the 80s and you'll see all kinds of body shapes.
Okay.
They're very accepting of all body morphias.
Okay.
Even body dysmorphia.
If I could just get a rad tan, maybe that'll help too.
That was my favorite Alex Jones thing when he was promoting his alpha male vitality thing. And the before and after pictures, he just made his skin red. He looks exactly the same, but it looks like someone swatted him with a fly swatter all over to make his skin red.
Yeah. You can tell there's like the before and after photos were taken the same day, but he just like punched himself and screamed a lot. And he's like, "Oh, take the second photo."
He just got all his veins popping.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're still just as fat."
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, Alex Jones was a beautiful looking man in his younger days.
He was doing it.
If you ever see pictures of young Alex Jones, he was very handsome.
Right.
Same with Nicolas Cage, frankly.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage, though now he looks like a weird freak.
Mm. And he is.
Nicolas Cage is very handsome. But yeah, so you gotta get in the. So I've got the scooter. I've gotten the. Well, see, my this new kid moved in a couple doors down.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like Mr. Cool. Like he like has roller skates. He's like this 7-year-old kid.
Yeah.
He's like roller skates. He's actually got a motorcycle. like an electric motor, and like he comes up to the house like zoom, and does the thing where you like immediately turn and land with your foot like at a 90-degree turn.
Yeah, I used to do that on my motorcycle, man. And
he comes to the door, so he's like zoom. You guys want to come play? Zoom, and then he zips off down the road. Just on his motorcycle. And so my son has been trying to up his cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just unconsciously, subconsciously, to match him. And so he's got in his scooter and his various bike, and he's trying to do all these like kick flips and stuff to be like, oh, well, yeah, you can do it. Well, I can, because he wants to go play too, but now he's got to up his game to kick flips.
Right.
So he's out there trying kick flips and falling down. And so I was like, well, if we're doing this, I need to be able to keep up down the road. So I got me a scooter too. Mm-hmm. And I realized this is fantastic. Scootering is great. It's lots of fun. Yeah. Everyone should get one. They make adult sized, and you can just go. You just down the road.
Yep.
So that's part of the Mullet Manifesto.
Cool.
We're gonna have this. This is gonna be great. So that's a happy note in the middle, and now we're gonna talk about ritualistic suicide. Okay. So I wanted to. I got this thought. That the ritualistic suicide comes from the same place as martyrdom. Okay. I'm not sure, but I'm going to work that out. And I know this is a sensitive topic for two reasons. One, everyone should know Smokestack thinks very poorly of suicide.
I do.
Very poorly of suicide. So if I speak of suicide in any sort of, let's not say glowing, but nice terms, he's not gonna like it.
I'm not.
He's going to be like, that's wrong. And he might be right. And also because we have some depressed people that listen. Yeah. I know this. And I don't want to encourage them to suicide by speaking of it in a nice way. But I hope to by talking about it in this way, show them why their impulse for suicide is there, and then they won't.
Maybe they'll find a way to take that impulse and do something constructive with it.
Yeah, because as Mishima said, who had maybe the best suicide of the 20th century, perfect purity is possible if you turn your life into a line of poetry written with a splash of blood.
That's pretty brutal.
Mishima was intense.
It doesn't have to be your own blood, though.
Well, no, but he was the samurai. He was the samurai spirit.
Yeah.
If you don't know about Mishima, Mishima was a Japanese author, arguably the best Japanese author. His books are fantastic, very deep. He was also a bodybuilder. He was also a modern samurai in that he took sword play very seriously and tried to learn it. Right, and he was engaged in a lot of combat. He was also very gay. He was also a writer. And he also attempted a military coup against the president of Japan and attempted to reinstall the divine right of the emperor, which failed. And then he took his own life in the classic seppuku fashion. Very intense man.
Yeah.
He got up there. He had this paramilitary group that he formed. And he tried to take over. He sort of did for a second, because he tricked them all into leaving, and I think he locked the doors, and he stood on the stage and tried to convince the army to join his coup. And the crowd of the army did not join his coup. And that was sort of the linchpin of the coup.
Right.
If you stand up there, it's sort of that's a big ledge to step out on. Is like, will the military join my coup? Because if yes, it's going to go well, and if no, it's sort of the end of it. It's like putting it out there. So he goes out there and they say no. So then he goes inside and he disembowels himself. And then that's, and he had written before, perfect purity is possible if you turn your life into a line of poetry written with a splash of blood. It was sort of an art project really for him in some ways.
Right.
I think, because he felt, And I think this is where the suicide impulse comes from for a lot of people, especially men. It's the idea of falling on your own sword, which he did literally.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to think about, like, why did ancient culture, like, because no one today really understands it. Like, when you think about the samurai and they're gutting themselves and having a friend chop off their head when the pain gets too intense, everyone was like, that's crazy. But I don't begrudge anyone thinking or think poorly on anyone for not wanting to die. I don't want to die. I don't want other people to die.
Mm-hmm.
I'm generally against death, right? But nonetheless, I think we can say that our society is overly death phobic. Maybe. Like, people are inordinately afraid of death. They don't accept death as a thing, right?
Well, I think we on a level pretend that it will never happen to us.
Right.
Which is not exactly the same as being overly afraid of it, because it's death is it's a punishment.
Right.
It's an unnatural punishment that we've brought into the world by our sin. And so there is a right fear of it.
Right.
Okay. But I think the modern Western behavior around death is more focused on, we really think that we can live forever on some level. And then
maybe through Elon Musk devices.
Right. And then any proximity to death that we think we might escape is very upsetting to us.
Yeah.
You know. So it's not that death is natural. Away. Yeah, it's like we can't face the bad thing that it is when other people that have come before us has said, yes, death is bad, but it is also real and we will also face it.
Right. So, yeah, and it's like, we hide death away. Like, no one dies at home anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you die quickly. Death happens behind closed doors, as birth does, really.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of, like, no one can ever, like, when there's a celebrity or something that gets stage 4 cancer, everyone's like, get well soon. No. And the guy always comes on and says, I'm going to fight it.
Mm-hmm.
No one ever just says, look, this is probably it.
Yeah.
Like, there's always this maybe undue optimism that every time it's like, you're 85 and you got stage 4 cancer. It's like, well, maybe coming out and being like, I'm going to fight this to the end. Is it?
Well, that's interesting, because the big dramatic heroic fight against cancer has almost become a product that you buy from the medical industry.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is the big heroic moment of my life. And it's like everybody wants to die a hero for some reason. And
right.
And it's not, and like, cancer is a horrible thing and I don't want anybody to get sick.
Right.
But I think upon some inspection we can acknowledge that there's some weird cultural thing surrounding it now.
Right. And the idea you said where everyone wants to die a hero, that's where the impulse for suicide comes from for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
So here's, because
it's a death game that you play with yourself. Like we talked about BLM,
Yeah. Well, it's slightly because, okay. The idea of the samurai and death and the suicide was, one would do it to get out of shame.
Yeah.
And you can look at that and be like, oh, that's vainglorious and weird.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to think about what they're in their mindset, and also in the mindset of a lot of ancient cultures. There was a level of life that was beneath the dignity of the person to live.
Yeah.
And if you accepted living that way, it proved that you were not dignified enough to not deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's sort of like, and people are like, because it sounds like victim blaming and stuff, but think about it. So like, imagine you're at work and your boss calls you into the office and he yells at you in front of everybody and humiliates you and everything. Okay. Happens to people.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, what if you don't do anything about it and you just say, yeah, okay. You go sit back down, you take it. you sort of prove your boss's point that you don't deserve respect.
Yeah.
Right? Or if your wife or spouse is constantly degrading you, and you never do anything about it, it sort of reinforces both to them and to you that you are not the sort of person that deserves that respect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so there's this idea of this line, like your no actually meaning something, like this idea of a line in the sand. Like, I'm not willing to live I'm not willing to be made an animal or a slave. And if those are my options, then I am going to just check out.
Yeah.
Which is why the samurai saw, like, if you were going to be enslaved by another samurai, because your team lost, like, they saw it as far more honorable to simply take your own life rather than endure that sort of existence. Because you're going to be made to live like an animal or a slave. And so rather than that, we will, in a splash of blood, prove to our own selves that we are worth more than that.
Yeah.
Right? Now, think about it that way, and then say, why are so many people depressed today? It's like, well, because a lot of Americans a lot of Americans are slaves. Let's be fair. The reason they talk about slavery from so long ago is because they want to obfuscate from the fact that so many people are slaves today. They work 2 to 3 jobs. They'd never get paid enough to get ahead. It's impossible for them to ever get ahead.
Yep.
At least in the old slavery, it was at least practically possible that a slave could save up enough to buy his freedom. I mean, it did happen.
Yeah.
But the idea that some guy working at McDonald's in the morning and doing lawn care in the afternoon can ever make enough to buy his way out of doing that,
or even retire, which is kind of that's the concept of buying yourself out of slavery.
Right. Retirement is buying yourself out of slavery. Right. So it's the same thing. The idea that he could ever do that, and then also he gets less health care than some people's animals.
Yeah.
They go to the vet and it's very, people in this country have animals with better health care than like millions and millions of Americans.
It's true. Yeah.
And so these people live like this, and then there's a part of them that says, well, by accepting living like this, I prove that I deserve to live like this. There's that, and that's to some degree, it is a valid thing.
Right. Because
that is the same impulse that drives you to be like, no, I'm going to ask for a raise. I'm going to ask for better treatment. That impulse serves a purpose. But you can also listen to it too much, of course. But that impulse, I think that's what drives a lot of this suicidal ideation in our country, is that people are basically treated like animals, or in some cases, literally worse than animals. Like if a dog breaks a leg, they can go get it fixed. But a lot of people, they go to the ER maybe, and they get treatment, but then it's sort of humiliating. They can't afford anything. They have to, it's this whole thing, right? And so a lot of people in America are basically slaves, and they feel like it would be more honorable just to check out, because there's 2 options of that. Like you said, it doesn't have to be your blood.
Yeah.
That makes the splash of blood the perfect purity. There's 2 options. One is you go on a shooting spree. You say, I'm not going to take this anymore. Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah.
Right? You go in, you shoot up your workplace, or or you just go on a random killing spree just to justify your own bloodlust. Because that also is a way of saying, I'm not going to accept this, right? Because you're saying, well, it's gotten to the point of violence for me. Like, you've reached that point, right? And then you go do whatever you're going to do. I mean, that is the impulse, honestly, that drives a lot of suicide bombers, because they are, there is the whole religious aspect and like the 72 virgins, but that's sort of a backdrop. A lot of it is, a lot of suicide bombers, if you look into them, were people that, like, my brother was killed by a dumb drone strike 10 years ago, and I feel like I must avenge him. To be a good person. so I'm going to put on a vest and right.
Yeah.
And you can see it's the same impulse. It's the same impulse. It's just presented differently. And so the splash of blood, you can either write it with other people's blood or your own. But either way, it's drawing a line in the sand saying, I won't live like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why suicide's gone up so much, especially during the quarantine, because people are like, well, I'm not going to live like that. There have been people basically locked in their very tiny apartment for months and months and months.
Yeah.
They live like a caged animal. And so they say, well, just, I'm going to commit seppuku. And so I think if you understand that that's where it comes
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. Then you can because what you got to do, here's the way out of it, I think, is you have to commit suicide on a lower level or maybe a higher level. I don't know. So let's say the deepest level suicide is actually killing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe you commit a lower level of suicide or a less deep level of suicide in that you commit social suicide. Like maybe you don't want to, maybe you run in a circle that says all these things that you don't believe,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is very common today because the culture demands ideological conformity.
Yeah.
And so you're around all your friends and they say all these things and you're like, I feel degraded on some level because I'm having to always agree and pretend like things are okay that I don't believe in.
Yes.
So maybe you maybe rather than commit actual suicide, you commit social suicide. And you say, look, there's what I actually believe. And if I'm cut off from everyone, I'm cut off from everyone.
Yep.
And then you regain some dignity.
I had an experience like that recently.
Really?
Yeah. And that's a really important point because that is the prevailing prison of the Western person is primarily it's you have to believe these things.
Right.
And you're like a caged animal. And by saying, no, I don't believe that. And I think you're all wrong.
Right.
And this is all stupid. You do.
Right.
It's like a metaphorical form of something like ritualistic suicide to come out and say, like, I recently had to tell people that I like and respect, though disagree with, but I care about. I had to say, listen, I don't believe that masking is good. Here are all the reasons that I think, and in the beginning I was like, no, masks are okay, but my position has rapidly changed, and to now I'm against them. And I had to tell these people that are firmly committed to this, and that is the prevailing thought. Right. And I had to say, no, I think they're bad. I think they're bad for you and me and all of our families. And I'm not down with this anymore. Right. And I was asked, like, then why is everybody wearing them if they don't work? And I said, because it's a form of mind control. And when you say say that, that's like, okay, I just crossed the bridge, and there's no coming back.
Now they either accept you or you're a crazy person.
Yeah, and thankfully,
I've done that a lot in my life.
Yeah, and these very good godly people who I love very much did not, cast me off. Right. For that. They said, they're like, okay, I'm glad you told us how you feel about it, and we're all still just buddies, So it's okay, but I still had to draw the line in the sand. Yeah. Or maybe you commit economic suicide. Like maybe if your job is asking you to do immoral things, or is constantly degrading you and humiliating you, asking you, maybe you just walk away and you're just like, well, if I end up in the gutter, I end up in the gutter. Yeah. And that also regains some of your dignity. Yeah. Because all of these things are a trade-off between living a certain way, a certain level of comfort, a certain level of security, and personal dignity. Or they can become that.
And so a lot of people are scared to do, a lot of people, frankly, are more scared of social suicide, economic suicide than they are of actual suicide. And, not
Sure.
unreasonably. Because
you don't have to live with actual suicide. Or
right,
you don't think you
do.
You don't think you do. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And it also makes a more dramatic statement, It makes it feel like it puts some of the guilt on the other people, so you sort of get retribution for them, like you drove me to this.
It's a big screw you to all the survivors. It really is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there's good reasons to kill yourself. Anyone that says there's not is not being honest, because a lot of America are slaves. A lot of people live very painful lives. But what I'm saying is the way out of it, I think, for a lot of people is to commit lesser levels of suicide. Right? Because that impulse is still there, but maybe the thing that you got to kill isn't yourself, but it's all these things that you're involved in.
Yeah.
The people you're involved with, the situation you're in. And that's super scary. But
there's a big difference in actual suicide and what we're calling lesser levels of suicide, is that the lesser levels are not destroying an image of God.
Right. And yeah, but so it comes from this place of like, and that's the same impulse that drove the samurai to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to live like this.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to write a haiku and then cut my stomach out.
Right.
And I encourage you, before you commit economic suicide, to also write a haiku, by the way, or even spiritual suicide. If there's a lot of people that continue on in some religion just because that's their social circle, whether that be Islam or Judaism or even Christianity or some form of Christianity, and they don't want to lose their social circle and go through the really the discomfort and the displeasure of having talks about why you're leaving the faith or converting to a different faith. That, like, there's a lot of Catholics that are still Catholic just because they don't want to go through the thing of telling their parents they're not Catholic. Or there's a lot of people that are Muslim just because, same reason, right? And they feel drawn to a different or better path, and I'm not saying I'm just saying they personally feel that, I'm not saying there's something better than whatever, but I'm just saying, and they don't do it. And so maybe you need to commit spiritual suicide or social suicide or economic, rather than actual suicide, like physical suicide. And it's all of those are better than the other option of drawing the line in the sand with blood, which is going on a shooting spree.
Yeah.
Because that also drives that, because you can do the suicide that's a big, screw you to everyone involved, or you can say, here's another way to screw you all. Bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the living conditions that people are under is driving them to both commit violence against themselves and others. But you got to commit violence against the thing that's actually making you feel that way.
We do tend to transfer our ire into things that are not necessarily the real problem.
Right. We tend to attack easy targets.
Yeah.
That's why the Black Lives Matter and Antifa attack small businesses that in the middle of the night that are mostly unguarded.
Yeah.
Because attacking the thing they're actually mad at, which is the police, is very dangerous. Same thing. That's why gangs, though they mostly dislike also the police, they mostly fight each other because fighting the police is harder.
Yeah.
And everyone gets like, oh, but you do the same thing. We all do the same thing. You fight, you take your anger and you turn it against easier targets. Rather than, one of the more difficult targets is, I'm going to risk homelessness rather than be treated this way at work, or I'm going to risk complete social isolation by going against the herd. Right? So then you turn your anger, it's a lot of the anger online is this. A lot of people just turn it after easy targets.
Yep.
And the easiest target for a lot of people is themselves.
That's why suicide's the coward's way out, is because it's the easiest target of all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but so now consider that like this line in the sand drawn with blood, right? And then that same impulse, or a close cousin to it, is what drives the impulse for martyrdom.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's like Chesterton said. He said something like, a martyr is someone that desires to live so much he's willing to die. Because he has a high path of life that he's committed to, and if that requires his death, then all the better. Right. Because he can prove to himself with his own blood that he's actually committed. Mm-hmm. And people really need to be able to. Martyrdom is one of those things that people are very squeamish about these days.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things being passed off as martyrdom that aren't also.
Right. But and we can't really. It's difficult for people to do it because Chesterton also said, I love Chesterton. He said, a man must be prepared not only to be a martyr but to be a fool. It is absurd to say a man is ready to toil and die for his convictions if he is not even ready to wear a wreath around his head for them. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, you got to be. That's one of the reasons I've tried to, like, at Christmas time, I just dress up like Father Christmas. Just like and I walk around and I'll go to the gas station dressed like Father Christmas. Mm-hmm. Or it's one of the. It's like, because you gotta wear it on your sleeve. Yeah. Because if you're not, it's like people are like, oh yeah, I'm ready to be a martyr, and then like they won't even like. They don't even publicly. There's no public outward anything about them. Mm-hmm. And it's like you have to be ready to wear a wreath around your head and celebrate the thing before you're ready to die for it. Right. And so a lot of people, don't commit suicide, but also there is a heroic driver and a valiant driver of suicide, but you just got to turn it toward its proper aim.
Just take the heroic part without the death part. Stand up for yourself by just saying, no, I don't believe that. Or
commit lesser levels of suicide.
Or no, I quit this stupid job. I'm going to find something else, even if it means I got to sleep at the homeless shelter.
I realized thinking about this, someone pointed this out to me, that the Bible never actually explicitly condemns suicide, which I always thought was an interesting omission.
I think it's
there implicitly, but you would think it'd be a
pretty solid implied doctrine.
I think so too, but you would think it'd be one of those things that's like.
And the characters, like the most famous suicide in the Bible, of Judas. I mean, you don't want to be that guy.
Well, you ever think about Jesus died hanging from a tree, and so did Judas. Yeah. All of the poetic parallels in the Passion narrative. Again, passion means blood. It came from the same word. The passion, like the willingness to commit suicide. Like Jesus was willing to also, in a sense, commit suicide. He didn't kill himself, but he allowed himself to be killed. Right. Right. And so it's the same. That's why the one Japanese fellow I talked to said, I said, what do you think about Jesus? He said he was a great samurai.
Interesting.
Because he recognized that same willingness to like go to the limit. Mm-hmm. Which is how the Japanese have always viewed that ritualistic suicide. And like I say, I don't think that's the correct answer, but the driving motive behind it is admirable. Yeah. Right.
It's a resolve that.
Right. And so if you're also feeling suicidal, know that part of your resolve to do it is admirable, but you just got to turn that toward the right thing. Mm-hmm.
Don't pick the easiest target. Pick the right target.
So the passion. Yeah. Because you can't, and you got to be willing. You have to be willing, in some sense, to go to the blood to make anything good. Like all of the great artists were slightly insane and willing to do it. Like Van Gogh cut his ear off. Mm-hmm. Because that same level of passion is driving them to be like, oh yeah, well, this is how serious I am about it. Yeah. Or like Abraham willing to kill Isaac, Yeah. Like that passion has to be there. The passion in the blood. So perfect purity is possible if you turn your life into a line of poetry that's written in a splash of blood.
That's a pretty rad quote.
That's a pretty rad quote, but it's also sort of like it's doctrinally sound. Like if the martyrs have all been held always to have
right.
They all go to heaven.
and
Their life is
and
perfectly
the
pure at that moment. Yeah.
and the condemnation of cowardice all throughout Scripture.
Right. Right. So yeah. So read about Mishima. Is it Mishima wrote Spring Snow is a great one.
Was he really gay?
Oh yeah.
Mm.
I mean, look, that's the thing about people in history. They did good things. They had problem things about them. There are very few people. You look at all of it and you're like, yeah, I'll accept all of it.
Sure, it's true.
But Mishima, he had a great physique. He popularized the idea of sun and steel.
Mm-hmm.
He was his greatest lament. He said there was no opportunity for heroic death in the modern world.
I mean, that's true. It's sort of there's no more frontiers idea.
Yeah, well, think about like all of these. Like this is the same idea that we're talking about here. The ritualistic is no different than the same impulse that drive the Norse idea of desiring to die in battle, or an idea of a good death.
Right.
Right. So many cultures were driven by this idea of a good death. The Native Americans. That's why there were some Native American slaves, but not very many, because most of them would commit suicide rather than be slaves.
Well, the implication in having a good death is that you lived a good life.
Right. And so that's where all this stuff comes. That's why so many the ancient people, they would fall on their own sword rather than be captured.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same impulse.
And it gets a little twisted because then you begin to imagine that a good death can make a bad life suddenly a worthy one.
Yes, I think that happened a lot in the medieval Christians. Like a lot of them they'd live horribly and then they would seek out martyrdom.
Yeah, which that doesn't work.
Which is a bit like there were some martyrs that they would go to the Islamic Empire, and I use martyrs in quotes here because I'm not sure these guys count.
Right.
And they would start saying, preaching about Jesus and stuff, which is, and then the imam would get them in the thing and they do the court and go, look,
right,
just chill out or I have to kill you by the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Like just do it. Don't do it so loudly.
Yeah.
In the middle of the square saying Muhammad is bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even care if you preach about Jesus. Just don't blaspheme Muhammad to our faces publicly.
Right.
And then, because then I'll have to kill you. And they'd be like, no, I have to do it. And then he would have to kill them. And they're really just, a couple of them were seeking out death to atone in their minds for their bad life.
Yeah.
And that's
suicide
God, whether or not that counts.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge them, but that seems a little spurious to me to seek it out.
It's a suicide bomber mentality.
Right. I'm not.
Which is not martyrdom. Sorry, guys. You're not a martyr if you blow yourself up for the caliphate or whatever.
Right. But it's the same, or, it's sort of, yeah. So I'm just saying, but I think that has been overdone. But Mishima, I always like Mishima. It's great. He's great. And he was a good sword fighter, too.
I've never read any of his stuff. I've read about him.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a tremendously good author. He also wrote plays.
Mm-hmm.
Like I say, he posed a lot in a thong with his body. He said something like, he said, for the modern man, it is not necessary to have big muscles. It's sort of archaic as learning ancient Greek,
mm-hmm.
but it tunes the spirit properly or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything he said was great. So, yeah. Wars are often fake. Ritualistic suicide comes from a good place. And Mullet Manifesto. Get a scooter.
Can I do rollerblades?
That'll solve a lot of problems right there. If you're feeling suicidal, just get a scooter.
Yeah.
And roll down the hill, and it's so much fun. You'll stop feeling suicidal, probably.
Get some more sunshine too. I've been laying out on my deck in the sun and just sunning myself. Really makes you feel good.
It does. I've started cycling too. I told you.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I'm better than everybody else that drives cars.
Well, that's what road cycling. It turns you into a total psychopath.
Yeah, you go through, and I look at people in cars and I'm like, you're driving. You're polluting the environment. Look at me. Woo.
I look forward to witnessing your descent into narcissistic madness.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna start drinking lattes, and getting on a bike, and doing all the stuff.
Yeah,
I do. I started. It does awaken a bit of because you can hit and run. Like you can just yell at people and then speed off down the hill. Like the other day, there was someone outside and they had a "Hate has no place here" sign when I was riding past. So when I went past the other way, I just mooed at them like a cow. I went, moo.
Were they like out in their yard?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was this lady and this man. And I just started mooing at them like a cow. And I did that for a couple days in a row.
Yeah.
When I'd see them outside. I'm sure it confuses them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what they think the message of that is. But now they know there's some guy that occasionally rides by their house and moos at them like a cow.
You should keep doing it until something happens. Eventually something will happen. You need to carry this out.
She may think I'm calling her fat, like a fat cow.
Right. Is she fat?
I don't know. No.
Okay. Well, maybe, just be like, lady, you're obviously not fat.
Yeah, it's a moo. And then a couple other ones I would just yell at them. I'd say, "Hate has no place here," and then ride past. Scoot down the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, drive-by. I mean, I see why people do drive-bys. It's a lot of fun. Because you can just attack someone and then you're gone. It's like being a Mongolian horse archer. You just fire an arrow and then you're gone.
I threw a pair of fuzzy dice at someone as I drove by one time.
Yeah, you don't have to deal with any of the consequences of your actions. You just scream at them like, "You're gay," and then you roll down the hill and they can never catch you.
Did you ever go nerding with me in school?
No.
We would drive around and just scream nerd at people.
Yeah.
Out the window. It was great. It was great fun.
Yeah. So we recorded some video this time, I think. We're going to try to put video up, but we're going to have to deep fake our faces.
Yeah, I don't want to face dock myself just yet.
Oh, speaking of dead people, did you see the recent weird AI deep fake thing where the parents took the Parkland? Yeah,
and they had him like talking all thug. Like, "Yo, it's your boy. Why y'all still got guns? That's dumb." G.
So the Parkland, one of the Parkland shooting dead kids.
Yeah.
Their parents brought him back via AI deepfake, basically. And it was pretty convincing.
It was.
And gave him, and he had to talk about how you should go vote.
Yeah.
And it was creepier than anything ever seen on Black Mirror.
That was the cringe bomb of the century.
It was creepy, and they should be held accountable for that.
Yeah.
It was bad.
Mm-hmm.
It was like an episode of Black Mirror in real life, which, by the way, Black Mirror is real. Look, your phone is a Black Mirror you stare into.
Yeah.
And on the back of it is a bitten apple, the forbidden fruit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying.
That's the main reason I got rid of my iPhone.
Well, you can do what I do, and you can color in the bite. That makes it better.
That makes it better. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then it's like, I have the whole apple.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So before we close it out, I got a story just about how crazy everybody's. Talking about splashes of blood. I feel like splashes of blood are about to happen everywhere because everybody's so, tense with the election coming up. So there's a nice young scamp who comes to my house to do some yard work for me every now and again. And he was out there with the edger, running the edger, and I was trying to get his attention. And he had his headphones on, he's running the edger, and I'm yelling his name, and he can't hear me. So I finally get close enough, I yell his name, and I startle him. And he comes at me with this edger, like raises it like a spear, and then I instinctively jump into this warrior, like, "Yo, I'm gonna get you," and we just like face off for a second there, and then I realize he's not going to rip my face off with the edger, and everything calms back down. But it's a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension in the air. And I think I hope we can all just get through this without ripping anybody's face off with an edger.
There's going to be a lot of blood to purify America.
Yeah. Sure is. Have you seen these TikTok videos?
No.
To this song, guys on the skateboard?
We got to do that with our fanny packs. Everyone get a fanny pack.
I've got
Hot
one.
pink. Hot pink.
I've got a chest harness pack. It's red.
Wow, that's pretty good too.
Yeah.
Of your love.